After attaching the daggers to his armor, next was to select the weapons that would be on the pack. Grabbing several more of the daggers in the shapes he preferred, they were connected to the pack. This process took some time until he had numerous daggers and a couple of short swords. "I feel like I'll be carrying around an arsenal," James grinned at the sight of all the weapons. "But this will be good, since there may be occasions where I throw my weapon at a monster, like I did with the forest cat." He nodded in satisfaction, knowing that he would be far more prepared compared to any previous times as an adventurer. With the weapons that he had selected, the cost would be beyond anything he could afford. It would likely be several thousand guild points, before including the armor and pack, and the armor itself felt like it would be 1,000 guild points. But compared to higher-tiered adventurers, I didn't have to save my money over a long period and upgrade one by one, James thought. Being an adventurer wasn't a cheap profession, requiring the individual to decide between saving for future upgrades or spending on quality meals. Thinking of food, James felt his stomach rumble. It had been some time since he had eaten anything aside from the rations they carried with them during the request. "I should invite Mim and his group along," James smiled. Since their groups would be working closely with one another during the request, it'd be essential to spend time and get to know each other. The other group was averaging 10 levels more than his group, and this would mean that they would be relying on them more. He knew that his group would need to quickly work hard to level up fast. Fortunately, increasing in level was primarily helped by eating food that had energy inside. With the guild supporting them, they could afford to stop more frequently when passing by towns and other cities during their travels. He thought about all the things they needed to acquire before going on the request while he was packing away as many of the clothes on display. Slowly, the pack was becoming full of supplies as he stored the clothing into it. "We should think about getting some kind of wagon," James realized. "Those things are expensive, but since the guild will be paying for all of our expenses, we can afford to get one." Putting on the pack onto his back, James looked at the other pack that had carried him through so much. He couldn't help but feel sentimental considering it was with him for so long. "Thanks for taking care of me all this time," James said to the pack. Though it still had supplies inside of it, aside from things like waking leaves, most of the other stuff wasn't something that beat the better supplies and gear that he'd be getting. He felt a little bad that he valued the utility that equipment had for him, but it was the realistic viewpoint. Stepping out of the storage container, he looked around to see who else had finished selecting their items. The first thing he noticed was someone dressed up in full plate armor from head to toe. It gave the impression of knights he'd read about in books. The only difference was a large pack on their back. "Sam, that's you, right?" James called out. The figure turned around. They then raised their visor to show their face. "James, you also finished?" Sam smiled, likely glad to see another person. "Were you the first person to finish?" James walked over to where Sam was standing. Nodding, Sam said, "That's right. I saw that they had provided several styles of armor. Still, instead of trying out each of them, the moment I spotted this armor, I selected it right away." He tapped his thumb onto the armor. It made a clanging sound as his armored hand hit the chest plate.